Thank you. I'm very honored to be here with this illustrious panel for this very, very critical presentation. I'm sharing my slides right now. I would like to talk about the Iran and Israel, but also the imperial war for hegemony. I want to emphasize that we have to understand this as a global war. And if we ask who won this war, we can say humanity won. But this is just the first round. It's just a skirmish in the global war of empire. Quick quiz question. This is a line from a film. This is a backward primitive country. I can't raise my children here. Does anybody know who said this? Um, and of course, it's a Hollywood movie. It's an American film called Not Without My Daughter. And of course, the country that she was referring to was Iran. I think I'll skip the video itself, but essentially, an American married to an Iranian goes to Iran. All of a sudden, he turns into a monster, beats her, and then she has to escape. But she emphasizes what a primitive, backward country it is. And of course, he tells her, "You're my wife. You're staying here because this is how we do things in Iran." It's a incredible piece of propaganda, and it's one of the images that many Americans were raised with. Now, I just want to give a sense of when I say primitive or backwards, I want to show this little clip from Stuart Saldowitz because we may have forgotten this.
You know what? It wasn't enough. Smile for me.
Can you play that again?
Like Muhammad, if we killed 4,000 Palestinian kids, you know what? It wasn't enough. Smile for me.
We can't see the image.
Because I actually know the guy who owns all these.
How about make it easy?
Samurai in Egypt will get your parents.
Go.
Does your father like his fingernails? They'll take them out one by one. You know that? What?
AJ, we can't see the images.
Okay. Did you hear the text?
Yes,
Did you
we
hear
heard
the
the
words?
text.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the words are enough.
Okay.
Essentially, this was Stuart Saldowitz, and he's not just any racist. He was actually the former director of the National Security Council South Asia Directorate under Barack Obama. He was a former diplomat for the US State Department, served during 5 presidencies. He was the State Department's Office of Israel and Palestinian Affairs. In other words, he was quote unquote negotiating the two-state solution according to, the Oslo Accords. And he was the 3-time winner of the State Department's Superior Honor Award. In other words, he's one of their top people. And if you recall the dialogue, Hussein is a halal food vendor. He says, "I'm working now. Can you go, please?" And Seldowitz says that you are a terrorist. You support terrorists. Hussein says, and it just kind of slips out of him, "You kill children, not me." And then Seldowitz doesn't even have the hypocrisy to deny it. He says, "You know what? We killed 4,000 kids. This was in 2023 already, 2 years ago. We killed 4,000 Palestinian kids. You know what? It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough." These are the people that are leading U.S. policy. And then, in other interactions, he says, "Smile for me. You don't speak English. That shows how ignorant you are. You should learn English. It will help you when they deport you back to Egypt, and the Mukhabarat, the Egyptian secret police, wants to interview you. Are you here legally?" And then he says, "I'm going to send this picture to my friends in immigration and to the Egyptians." In other words, he has direct friends with the Egyptian secret police. They will get your parents. Does your father like his fingernails? They will take them out one by one. And he actually demonstrates taking fingerprints. So these are the people that we're up against, and I'm not going to show you this film. This is Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs. But Stuart Seldowitz actually does a really, really good uh, uh, he's a really good contender for Anthony Hopkins' role in The Silence of the Lambs. This is a serial killer. And of course, we know Hopkins, he won the Academy Award, but he was acting. But if you see that Seldowitz it just comes out of him naturally over and over and over again in multiple interactions because that's just who he is. And let's remember, he was constantly rewarded for his work with the State Department. Now, here's another individual. This is Rabbi Ronan Shalov. He says, all of Gaza and every child in Gaza should starve to death. And of course, we have the inimitable Madeleine Albright when she's asked, told that 500,000 children have died. Is the price worth it? And Madeleine Albright says, we think the price is worth it. 500,000 children killed by the empire. And of course, later you see Amy Goodman running interference for Albright. She allows her to, give her piece without challenging her. Albright says, we were sending medicines and food. But what she doesn't challenge her is the fact that the U.S. deliberately was preventing the export of desalination components, which means that everybody would die, a miserable death from water contamination, which was the whole idea, and this was the actual cause that was planned as they were doing this. So this is what we are up against, and this is why I say that for a moment, if you understand that these are the people that Iran was fighting, then we can say that for a short moment, humanity won. As I said, starving, the Israelis are starving the Palestinians to death. And it didn't just happen in the last few months. It's been ongoing. Starvation is a long, slow process. People can go for a long time without food. But now they've hit phase 5, really, critical, the critical state. And I would argue that, once again, what's going on is not simply subhuman because humans share food. It's not even submammalian because mammals feed their young. It's not even subavian because birds feed their young. I mean, it's reptilian what is going on. And so when, somebody like Betty Mahmoud in a movie says that Iran is primitive, we really have to ask ourselves, what has happened to language itself? Just going back to the notion of primitive, I want to, and I apologize for, talking about Iranian culture and history with people who are real experts on it, but I'll just point out a few facts that most people in the West don't know. Iran or Persia invented algebra. In fact, it is from the name of a text that was written by a Persian. We can essentially say that the Persians invented modern mathematics. Prior to that, essentially, we had geometry, which was Greek. And then when the Persians invented algebra, that was essentially the core text that was used from the 8th until the 16th century in the West. And this was a kind of unifying theory of math. We can also ask, who invented the algorithm, which is the basis of coding or programming. It's the basis of all computing and computer science and technology and the concept behind any standardized protocol. It's really a kind of breakthrough in human reasoning itself. And if you said Alan Turing, you would be wrong because, again, it was a Persian, Khwarizmi, who invented the algorithm, Al-Khwarizmi, which really is a kind of corruption of his name. And then we can even ask who invented the scientific method itself. And of course, if you don't know much, you might say it's Francis Bacon. But of course, again, the Persians invented the scientific method. In particular, they invented the notion that science requires not just induction, which the Greeks had done a little bit, although they had mostly done deduction, and experimentation, and the understanding that you need to do control testing and that you need to bring mathematics into your physical and scientific testing. These are all Persian contributions to humanity. And of course, we also know that Avicenna developed a theory of mechanics long, long before Newton. And these discoveries formed the basis of, actually, ballistic missiles. We can also talk, and Sarah alluded to this, where was the first teaching hospital in the world? And if you said St. Bart's in London in 1123, you would almost be correct, but it was actually the Academy of Andi-Shapar in Persia. And that was about 600 years before during the Sasanian Empire. And of course, Iran's work in science has never stopped. This is 14 years ago. This is an article in New Scientist which says that Iran is top of the world in science growth, an 18-fold increase in science publications. Now, going back to ballistic missiles, what we do know in True Promise 2 was it was the second largest ballistic missile attack in history. 200 missiles at Israel, which covered over 1,500 kilometers. Actually, the most intense, the largest ballistic missile attack in history was True Promise 3, which was about 550 ballistic missiles. We know we don't have clear battle damage or bomb damage assessments, but we know that many of them were not intercepted. That is, US, NATO, Israel, all these king's horses and king's men put together, their shield failed. That is to say, the THAAD system, the Arrow 2, Arrow 3, David Sling, Patriots, which they refer to as the greatest Patriot engagement in human history, where they actually had to move the Patriots out of other places to bring them into theater, as well as Iron Dome, that failed. And this shattered the myth of Israeli impunity. As I said, we don't have clear battle damage assessments because they're all being hidden, but we know that this was significant enough that Israel had to tap out. So we have some conclusions we can draw that Iran is capable of directly punishing Israel, and it is also capable of directly attacking US assets. In fact, it's the only state power in the last half a century which has done so. It is a burgeoning science and tech superpower of the axis of resistance. And I would argue that it is essentially an ancient civilizational state that is recovering its historical glory and stature, like China, with which it has a very, very close relationship. This is the illuminated manuscript. It's a picture called The Court of Kayumars, and it tells the story of Iranian history before the Islamic conquest. And if you look at the style and the pictures, you'll see that it is a very, very much a Chinese type of landscape painting, which attests to the close relationships that China and Iran had, which have continued throughout time and have accelerated in these past few years. On the other hand, Israel, their shield failed. That is to say, the NATO shield failed. Israel's shield is helpless against Iran's spear, and they cannot
do wrap up soon, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. And they relied on deceit and pager attacks, etc. And all of this is tied to, the Yom Kippur War. They're incapable of protraction. The size matters because Iran is the most mountainous country in West Asia, and it is 90 times larger. US used 14% of its THAAD stockpile, and it could take anywhere from 5 to 8 years to replenish this. Israeli weapons, Jericho 1 and 2, were built with the help of the French, and the Pahlavi regime in Iran is suspected of helping the Israelis build this because Israel was building a delivery capacity for nuclear weapons in collaboration with South Africa's nuclear weapons. So, and they also used this Internet of Dangerous Things in their pager attack, which was facilitated by Taiwan's gold Apollo pagers. So we can also see that there is a reversion to a kind of an axis of fascism. That is to say, South Africa, which used to be one of the key pariah states, along with Israel, South Africa was providing, Israel was helping South Africa build a nuclear bomb. And Taiwan was the connection for all of these states. It was the kind of central clearinghouse. And Taiwan has just vowed to donate to Israeli settlements. But the larger picture is there's a sequencing of war. The US is planning to knock out China, and it's simply a three-course meal that they have been struggling how to figure out the sequencing of. And originally, they wanted to pivot directly to China, but when Russia got involved in Syria, the Nuland faction became ascendant, and I believe they said, we need to knock out Russia first before we go on to China. And besides, Russia is just a gas station, which didn't happen. But all of this goes back to, as others have pointed out, it goes back to the clean break document, which path to Persia, notion 7 countries in 5 years, little boys go to Iraq, real men go to Iran. And this is an entire connected field of war. US wants war on China. It has regional proxies, and it is using the doctrine of war that it has for China comes out of the Yom Kippur War. So China's response is surrounding the countries from the countryside. It's building out South-South trade and connection and de-dollarization, and it's supporting Iran in multiple ways. And as Carl Zah has always said, you can print money, but you can't print missiles. We currently see the 4 horsemen of capitalism: deindustrialization, financialization, de-skilling, as well as simply, failed state internal contradictions. So I think that's enough for me right now, and I'm happy to expound on anything if questions come up.
I'm Michael Hudson. I'm appearing here for the International Manifesto Group. If you like this video and ones like it, please subscribe. For more information, go to the address on the screen.